Hello, I'm in the Oni booth 2028 at New York Comic Con. I'm with Sarah Mirk, who has a new book that just came out, and this is their con debut for Open Earth. Sarah, hello.
Hi, it's so great to be here.
It's great to have you. I know this is your first time here at New York Comic Con.
Yeah, it's so big.
Yeah, it is. People are always like New York versus San Diego, and it's like, well, they're both just monster conventions full of lots of people willing to buy things. So they're both great.
Yeah, I've seen already one person cosplaying as Darth Vader with a baby in front of him. That was my favorite cosplay so far.
I mean, that's really good. Yeah, New York is definitely known for its cosplay because even today, even with it being weirdly hotter than normal, like a normal New York Comic Con weekend is still going to be enough that you can wear a full costume. But we're not talking about costumes here. That's not what this video is about. This video is about Open Earth, which just came out, which has been described as sci-fi erotica by some.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, so it's part of Oni Press's erotica line or sexy books imprint, which is called Limerence. And Limerence puts out all kinds of books about sexuality, and this is, I believe, the first fictional original erotica thing that they've put out. And it's set in space. It's set on a space station. After basically the climate collapse of Earth, the sole survivors of California have fled to the space station and live there. And it's about them navigating one day in their life and their relationships. So it's all the kind of stuff that we deal with down here, feelings, broken hearts, lots of emotions, and some sexy times, except that it's in a very confined area because it's on a space station. So there's no privacy, there's nowhere to go.
That makes total sense. It's like it's just looking at the realities of real life. It's just that this real life is skewed by the idea of that everyone's on a space station.
Yeah, it's fun because it helps raise the stakes for being like, okay, if you're having a problem with somebody, you have to work it out. There's nowhere you can go. You can't just not text them back because you live together on a space station. You're going to see them.
It never occurred to me that you can't ghost someone if you're on a confined space like that. Like the same thing with like being in a bunker. You can't like be like, oh, did that happen? Well, no, like you can't. You can't ghost anybody.
Yeah, and so the story, I would say it's a really sweet, tender, sincere story about multiple relationships. So because there's not much privacy and they're kind of stuck there for the rest of their lives, they approach relationships from a polyamorous standpoint. So they're all in open relationships. Everybody kind of shares, but it's not easy. And there's a lot of having to talk it out. Just like in real life, if you're navigating multiple relationships, it's 95% talking through feelings and 5% being able to actually get it on. And the book is hopefully pretty inclusive. It's really fun for me to think about like what gender will look like in 200 years in the future, what sexuality will look like 200 years in the future. And so it's a pretty queer-friendly, queer-inclusive book.
I know I'm not alone in saying after reading it, it does have the air of a bit of like aspirational queer, which is like a very fun, interesting, somewhat controversial like subcategory of queer fiction because, well, it doesn't involve like a lesbian being introduced just to get murdered. It's like a queer poly relationships and like the realities of that. Which, like, in the same criticism some people had about Dream Daddy, which is just like, Dream Daddy is like a video game where there's a bunch of queer people that all live in the same, like, neighborhood, and you can just date a bunch of dads, and it's cool, and no one stops to go, this is weird, or this is a problem. So that is a nice thing about Open Earth, is it just starts from the premise of, yeah, open relationships, poly, queer, now what?
Yeah, it's like, if you think about it, if you're stuck with the same people for your whole life, you're gonna have to be okay with however they are. So there's a character in here who we would call genderqueer, who uses they, them pronouns, but is never discussed in the book. They never stop and they're like, have you seen genderqueer Franklin, who uses they, them pronouns? Because they all know. It's all established. It's not weird. It's just like taken for granted that that's the way that it is. And same thing with navigating open relationships. For them, that's a normal relationship, but that doesn't mean it's easy in any way, and that doesn't mean that it's better or worse than monogamy. It's just the way that their culture has developed.
It's just starting from a basis that let's see where this goes, but we all agree that this is a cool thing and no one is mad, and then also no one is getting persecuted for being it. We just start with a space of cool, and then see where that goes, which is aspirational and which is awesome.
Yeah, and the goal of the book is to be a really good time. It's supposed to be really fun, it's supposed to be sweet, it's supposed to make you feel good, and nothing really bad happens in the book. Like in a lot of sci-fi books, like there's aliens who invade, or like an airlock is blown, or like they're slowly running out of air and they're all gonna die. That doesn't happen here. It's like, I wanted to talk about how the stakes of relationships feel like life and death even when there's actually not life and death. Like for me, like I'm not gonna live and die by who I date or who I sleep with, but it can feel really, really important. And I wanted that importance to come through even when there's not like the existential, the like external threat of like, oh, and actually you are all gonna die. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So the book is available. It's here at the Oni booth 2028. You'll be signing. You'll be here in New York Comic Con this weekend. It's in color and it is saran wrapped, so we can't have the kids touch it because this is the adult line. We didn't really talk about. We talked about the larger stuff here. This book is a good time in more ways than one.
Yeah, there's a lot of sex in it. I would say it's gotten some negative reviews online so far from people who are like, why is there so much sex in this book? And if you don't want a book full of sex, don't buy this book. It's full of sex.
I mean, that's great advice for any book, for anyone. Like, know what you're getting into with Open Earth. It is an awesome story. It is being this kind of cool queer fiction, especially sci-fi queer fiction that people are looking for. And then also there's times where it's very, very sexy. So look for that book. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you, folks, for watching. We'll have more videos all weekend long here at New York Comic Con and Oni's booth 2028. And I'll see you soon.